did you just spend around 13 hours binge watching Netflix's new show 13 Reasons Why like I did? If you saw the show and read the book, then you probably noticed some differences between the two. If you've only ever seen the show, then maybe you're curious how they changed it up for the book. Well, you're in luck, because I've got the book right here, and I'm going to break down the top 10 differences between the book and the TV adaptation of 13 Reasons Why right here on the lineup. Okay, so I feel like this is a given, but let me go ahead and just say, spoiler alert here. Now, I'm only picking 10, but I am aware that there are more than 10 differences between the show and the book. The first big difference is that instead of taking place over one night, the show takes place over a few weeks. In the book, Clay listened to all his tapes in the course of a day. He listened to them kind of non-stop, whereas in the show, Clay goes through the tapes pretty slowly as some of the stuff that he's hearing gets really heavy and he has a hard time continuing to listen to it. Now this, of course, opens the floodgates for a bunch of new storylines as we get to see how these tapes have affected not just Clay, but the other classmates that are also included on the tapes. We also see how it's affected Hannah's parents and other adults in the story, and it lets us dive more into the backstories of those other characters, including their home lives and relationships that make them seem a little bit more sympathetic and rounded out to the viewer instead of just straight up bullies. The second difference deals with Clay. In the book, he's kind of your average guy that everyone seems to like. However, in the show, he is definitely a more flawed person. He's not your sweet, perfect little golden boy. He's guilty of doing bad things himself. We see him at one point masturbating to the picture of Hannah and Courtney kissing that was leaked. He actually becomes a bully himself, even though he thinks he's kind of getting justice when he takes a picture of Tyler's naked butt and sends it to the school. Also with Clay, in the book, he ends up kind of slicing his hand on the fence, and he has that injury where in the show we see him actually crash his bike into a car where he ends up having a cut that you see throughout the entire show, which I think they did in order to kind of help distinguish the present from the flashbacks. And also throughout the show, he ends up having kind of some visions and hallucinations. Next up, we have a lot more diversity when it comes to this show. Not only does it feature diversity when it comes to the cast as far as ethnicity goes, we also have 3 LGBT characters. In the book, ethnicities and sexual orientation are never really talked about, so it kind of left things open for the show to go in different directions. Ryan, the guy that published Hannah's poem in the Lost and Found paper, he's actually gay in the show and is the ex-boyfriend of Tony, who we know as the keeper of the second set of tapes, and kind of the guardian angel of Clay. But presently in the show, we do see Tony dating a guy named Brad. Also, Courtney is now a gay character who is kind of afraid of being outed because she has 2 gay dads on the show, and she's seen what they've had to deal with. And this also kind of changes Courtney's storyline when it comes to her tape. In the book, Courtney and Hannah are photographed giving each other kind of back massages and pretending to find, vibrators in her drawer or whatever. Whereas in the show, Courtney and Hannah end up getting drunk, playing a game of truth or dare. They end up making out, and a picture of them circulates throughout the school. And you kind of see her struggle with her identity and sexuality throughout the whole show. The fourth main difference is in the addition, change, or merge of characters. Now first up, if you read the book and you're watching the show, you're probably like, hey, wait, where is Jenny? Well, in the show, they've actually changed the name of Jenny to Sherry. I haven't seen anything explained of why that happens, but I'm gonna guess that Adriana Alexis, who is the actress who plays Sherry, just kind of doesn't look like a Jenny. Next, Sky, who Clay reaches out to at the end of the book, has a bigger part in this show. She is played by Sosie Bacon, who's the daughter of Kevin Bacon and Kira Sedgwick, and she's actually a combined character. It's Sky from the end of the book mixed with the tattooed girl in the book that Clay knew from shop class who works at Monet's. The last big character change is that kid that is killed in the car accident that is partially Jenny, or in the show's case, Sherry's fault because she knocked down the stop sign. In the book, it's just kind of a random kid at school, whereas in the show, it's actually Clay's friend Jeff, who he tutors in various subjects so that he can still be eligible to play sports. And then in turn, Jeff kind of tutors Clay in how to be social, how to talk to girls. This change in making the character someone that Clay is close to that gets killed kind of adds a little bit more complication to Sherry's storyline and her relationship with Clay, which you see when you watch the show. Now, number 5 on my list goes to the lawsuit, which is not in the books at all. Like I said, since the show takes place over a few weeks and we get to see new characters and Hannah's parents are more involved in the story, we see them dealing with her death and they decide to sue the school for not doing anything to prevent Hannah's death. And in the finale, we get to see some of the characters giving their depositions and we see whether they choose to reveal the truth about the tapes or just in general about what they know with Hannah, which makes kind of the conclusion of the show a little more exciting. The next difference is the order of the tapes. In the book, Clay is tape number 9, and he's followed by Justin's second tape, Jenny, Bryce, and Mr. Porter. In the show, Clay's tape is number 11, which is done probably so viewers will actually stick around a little bit longer because they're most curious to know what's on Clay's tape. Also, in the show, Clay skips giving the tapes to Bryce, who is number 12, and passes them straight off to Mr. Porter. So with him being number 11, he's meant to only skip 1 character instead of 3 if they had kept the original order. Next up on the list is that Hannah's tapes in the book basically kind of serve as the truth. We don't really hear anyone else's sides of the stories. However, in the expanded timeline of the show, we do know that Hannah has gotten a few things wrong. We get to hear other people's truths in the show. For example, she thinks Zach threw away that letter that she had left him, when in fact, Zach has kept that letter and even offers it to Clay to read. There's also a point where Jessica says that it's Hannah who stopped meeting her and Alex at Monet's and not the other way around like Hannah says. The 8th big difference is Clay and Hannah's relationship. In the book, Clay liked Hannah and Hannah wanted to get to know Clay better, and even though they worked together for a summer, they really never had a full, real conversation until the party. In the show, the two definitely know each other better than in the book and have a friendship. It seems like they work at the theater throughout the entire year. They run into each other at school, at parties. They also have nicknames for each other, which means that they were definitely closer than what most people would think. Next up is the fate of the tapes and just the ending in general. In the book, Clay finishes listening to the tapes and then mails them off to the next person and then goes and reaches out to his classmate Sky, who he thinks might be in trouble. In the show, Clay seems to take everything into his own hands, makes a 14th side to the tapes by taping Bryce's confession about raping Hannah, and then skips Bryce and passes the tapes on to Mr. Porter. In the deposition, Tyler ends up revealing that these tapes exist, and we also see Tony decide that he should give a copy of the tapes to Mr. and Mrs. Baker, who start to listen to them at the end of the show. And Clay does still reach out to Sky, and we end the show with her and him driving off with Tony and his boyfriend Brad to, we have no idea where, but they're skipping school and driving off somewhere to escape. The last big difference is how Hannah actually died. In the book, it's said that Hannah actually swallowed pills. However, in the show, Hannah ends up slitting her wrists, and it's mentioned a few times in the show, and the show could have just alluded to the fact that Hannah slit her wrists and used that Clay vision, but we actually do see Hannah take her own life in the show. It is definitely a very graphic scene that has, a warning before the episode starts. You see the full thing, which I think is done, this switch, in order to pack more punch with Hannah's death, just visually, and kind of just to get to you a little more than what could have been visualized if Hannah had just taken a bunch of pills. So those are my choices for the 10 biggest differences between 13 Reasons Why, the book, and 13 Reasons Why, the Netflix TV show. Now, obviously, like I said, there are definitely a bunch more changes, especially because they stem from an expanded storyline. So I want to know, what do you think of all the changes that were in the show? If you read the book, do you like these changes? Do you like the book better? Do you like the show better? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below or on social media. I personally think I like the changes. A lot of the changes, I think, just made the story a more well-rounded story. Now, if you're still in a 13 Reasons Why mood, I talk all about the ending and season 2 theories right over here. And don't forget to subscribe for even more random pop culture nuggets on my show. And high five to you if you've already subscribed. And as always, until next time, I'm Lisa. Shine on!